Hi, I'm Natasha Ruschka, and I'm an oil painter of landscapes and still life.
Hello, I'm Chris Stafford, and this is AART, the podcast where we get up close and personal with women from around the world of visual arts. This is Season 2, Episode 43. My guest this week is the Australian landscape and still life oil painter, Natasha Ruschka. Natasha says, taking seemingly simple scenes and transforming them into a beautiful and interesting vignette with only oil paints feels like my very own form of magic. Natasha was born in Subiaco, Western Australia in 1974 and has two stepsisters. Her mother, Linda, is also a prolific artist, as is her biological father, John. Natasha was raised by her stepfather, David, who was an army officer, which meant that the family frequently relocated in the South Pacific region. At the age of 4, Natasha moved to Papua New Guinea for 2 years, and again later as a teenager. She attended St Hilda's School in Southport on the Gold Coast, before moving back to Canberra to her family to finish school. After graduating high school, Natasha decided to study business computing as a way to find employment. At the age of 18, she found herself working in the Hyatt Hotel, where she met her future husband. The couple moved to Brisbane for his work and later to Colorado. It was there that Natasha discovered an interest in art at the Park Hill Art School, and she never looked back. The couple returned to Canberra in 2019, by which time Natasha had established herself as an artist. She says she doesn't believe in talent, but has a good eye. She loves the excitement of a blank canvas and the promise at the beginning. Natasha lives in Canberra with her husband Greg. They have 3 children, Nadia, Vienne and Zach. Hi, Natasha. Thank you for joining me all the way from, not a sunny Canberra. You told me it's raining in Canberra today.
No, it's not sunny today, but thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's lovely to have you join me. We think of Australia and we think about the beautiful landscapes that you have to paint. I mean, and that there are women artists down under, but we don't get to see their work as much. If it wasn't for social media, I'm hoping that this will, give you more exposure. We will be getting more guests on from Australia and New Zealand because, you're one of Australia's best kept secrets, I think.
Oh, it's a nice way to look at it. Thank you. Yeah, it's we do have a lot of great landscape artists, and I think you're right. Social media has helped us find a lot more of the female landscape artists out there. I'm certainly discovering more of them all the time, which is great.
And when I asked you in our pre-production about the female artists whose work you admire, you said you're a big fan of Australian female greats. I mean, some of them are no longer with us, but was this, as well as I'm coming to your mother, of course, who's an artist too, because she must have been inspirational, but were any of these artists inspirational to you?
So the reason I've sort of stumbled across them more recently, and when I say that, I mean in the last 5 years, because I started painting when I lived in the US. So that's where I started to do my deep dive into looking at the type of art I liked. And when we moved back to Australia, I really wanted to discover, the Australian side of that and relate to the stories of art and artists back home. So I think that's where I am right now with discovering some of those wonderful artists like Clarice Beckett and no longer with us.
You mentioned Margaret Olley and Hilda Rix Nicholas. Now, these are names that I'm not at all familiar with, but, they clearly made their mark in terms of women artists in Australia. And then you've got the living artists that you admire. There's Carol Marine, Laurie Putman, and Hayley Jo Summers, you mentioned, for her plein air work. So do you still draw on inspiration, thanks to social media, from these other artists around the world?
Yes, I do. I I try to not look too much at other art because I'm trying to protect, I guess, what's in my head and not get too distracted and try to find my voice. And I can get a bit distracted by other art. But I've definitely, Carol Maureen was a huge inspiration for me when I first started painting, especially just her philosophy around painting and daily painting and painting as a practice, which is really important to me, so much more so than the outcome of each painting session. So from a way of approaching painting, Carol Maureen, I think, has been an inspiration for me from the beginning. And then more recently, I think I've been looking a lot at Laurie Putnam and Haiti Jo just from the perspective of managing the plein air painting and everything that goes along with it. It's such a, it's almost like a rock star sport, I think. In terms of painting, it's not just about what you create, but about what you can endure through the process. Hilda Rix Nicholas is someone I've only just stumbled across recently myself. I came across her paintings in a museum in Melbourne, and one of the pieces was of a scene right near my home. Like, I think I can walk there 5 minutes away, and it was painted, I think, in the 1920s. And it was just so wonderful to see historically my environment through the eyes of an artist that long ago, and a female artist. And she was out getting outdoors, painting plein air. And it was just a really wonderful discovery. So I'm still sort of tapping into her work at the moment because I hadn't heard of her either. And I think Clarice Beckett is just such an inspiration because and it's sort of a sad story too, because she painted an enormous body of work in her time, but she died really young, I think in her 40s or something, from pneumonia. I think they say potentially from being out painting in the rain. And she would have been relatively unknown in Australia until her works were stumbled across, I think in 30, 40 years ago, and they found this enormous body of work of this wonderful female plein air painter who very much a tonalist and painting these moody atmospheric scenes of Melbourne and St Kilda where she lived.
Do you find that female artists in Australia are getting the recognition that they deserve, or do you still feel it's sort of competitive because historically we all think of men?
That's interesting. There's definitely, from where I'm coming from, from what I see, a lot of female artists out there putting themselves out there every day. Whether they're getting the recognition, I think it's happening slowly. I can see it changing. I don't think we're there yet. I think it's partly a change in society, accepting and seeing these female artists and what they do, but also I think it's somehow the artists themselves getting better at putting themselves out there and not being afraid to stand up and go, this is me and this is my work, and it needs to be recognized and appreciated. It's not an easy thing to do. I don't find it that easy.
We hear this often, from women who just, they're not particularly comfortable marketing themselves, don't necessarily naturally put themselves out there. Social media has helped because you can display your work, and of course having a website helps too, but social media helps you to be more proactive, I think, in displaying your art. And you do a beautiful job of it, I must say, on Instagram.
Oh, thank you. I try. I have a love-hate relationship with Instagram.
And you do have a very good following there too. So let's talk a little bit about light. Now, this isn't a technical podcast, as you know, Natasha, But the reason I want to talk about it because I've been fortunate of spending quite a bit of time in Australia and all over Australia. And one of my favorite light was, funnily enough, where you were born in Western Australia, particularly in Perth. The light there is so different, is so special. Was that something you can reflect on now? The differences between Western Australia and where you are in ACT, in Australia Capital Territory, which is the capital, of course, in Canberra. That very, very different light between the East and the West.
Yes and no. So there's a bit of a story there. I was born in WA, but I didn't spend very much time there before we moved away. And so I've actually spent most of my life on the East Coast up north in Brisbane and Queensland. However, I was recently just in WA last week. Excuse me. So I've definitely seen a change in the light when I moved from Brisbane down to Canberra, so I moved south, and I think that was probably the first time I realised what a difference there could be seen when through analysing and looking at the landscape through my artistic lens, and then recently going to WA, yes, I did see it as well. So that's my long-winded answer, but I think probably talking about light, the most significant thing that I've noticed recently was when because I've only been in Canberra for the last 12 months, moving down to Canberra, I had a show that I was working on to present back up in Brisbane. So I took it on as a bit of a project, something to get me going in Canberra, not really knowing what I would do when I got here. And it was funny that when I presented all the work back in Brisbane, everybody said to me, your paintings look different. There's a different light. We can see you're using different colors and I said, yeah, it's a different light for sure. It's, I noticed that in Brisbane, I guess this is going to be really subjective in the way I'm interpreting it, but I feel like in Brisbane I was painting with a lot stronger color, and it was really, I feel like the light was sort of stronger yellows, like more yellow to it. Whereas in Canberra, it's cleaner and cooler. And I did notice that over in WA, it was probably a little more like the Canberra light. And I don't know if that's less humidity, or I was sort of chatting with my girlfriend about this the other day, how the evening light can even be different. Is it just less moisture in the air? We're not sweating as much. But definitely I'm seeing those changes in the light. It's just really fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And in the mountain area, Kosciuszko Park, up in the national park there, when you get up a little bit higher, then as you say, the air is so clear. It's more, it's a different elevation, and but I love those differences. And I'm sure as an artist, it must be fun to recognize the differences in light that you have in different parts of the country. So you're really a little bit spoiled there.
Thank you.
For your choices, because I love where you live right now in Canberra. But let's go back, if we may, because as you know, we like to go back to where it all began, and it was in Dublin, Western Australia. You are from what we now call a blended family. So tell us a little bit more about the composition of your family, and as it is now, and as it was when you were growing up, when you were a small child.
Yeah, I think I definitely was from a blended family, but I think it never really felt that way. So my mum, I was conceived in Western Australia. My mum had a long-term relationship, well, I think 5 years, with my dad, John, and I was conceived pretty late in that relationship, possibly even when maybe they'd both decided it was ended. But so yeah, it was funny that I came along towards the end of that. But she, decided to embark on being a single mum, and said he could be in my life, and it all ended quite amicably. But she shortly after I was born, moved back to the East Coast so that she had the support of her family. So I didn't end up seeing him very often, or didn't really see him much after that. But then she met my stepdad, David, and he was in the army. So they pretty quickly moved after that, and we ended up in Papua New Guinea. So I lost contact with my biological dad for a long time, and we reconnected sort of in my late teens, and then we met up a few times. He was still in Western Australia, so it's just such a long way. It's like coast to coast. I don't know if many Americans realize that our east and west coasts are almost the same distance as theirs. So in my 30s, we reconnected, and by that stage I had my own kids, and so it felt relevant to understand my parents and where I'd come from a bit more then too. But I think my stepdad, David, really, for my life, was my father figure and who I considered to be my dad, and he raised me and was, the biggest part of my life. And I had two sisters through that marriage as well, Cara and Amy.
So you were the only child from your mum's first marriage?
Yeah, they weren't married. They were in a de facto relationship, yeah.
And so what was your relationship like with your dad, David? You say he was an army man. So does that mean it was a disciplined household?
I wouldn't say overly disciplined. I think he brought a lot of structure and stability to my life, because before that, I think, I would have been 3 when he came into my life. And I think things would have been pretty tough for my mum, being a single mum, certainly back in the 70s. And so he brought a lot of grounding and stability and that family unit. And I remember that being a good change. He was never he had strict expectations, like I think most parents, but I wouldn't have called him overly strict. I don't think he went the other way, certainly as a result of being in the army or anything like that.
So what age were you when you moved to Papua New Guinea? And that was because he was posted there, was it?
Yes. That was shortly after they got married. So I would have been probably turning 4. Yeah. Very young.
Your earliest education was over there. What was that like?
We were there for 2 years before we moved back to Brisbane. I don't know. I might have attended preschool, so I don't think I started school there. But I do have a lot of memories of just sort of running around with a lot of the kids, being in villages. I remember my dad talking to some of the locals about building me a cubby house, and they came out to our pretty much what was our front lawn and built this. It was almost like a small house, like it had to be, the size of somebody's kitchen or even bigger. And it was all made from bamboo, and it had a roof, and I just couldn't believe it. But I don't think there was any way for the light to get in. So pretty quickly all the grass died and it became mud inside. And I don't think I ever really did much with it. I felt really bad, but I thought, how many kids get a cubby house built for them that's that huge in their front lawn?
Yeah. So you were running around barefoot, I would imagine. I mean, you do in Australia anyway, in certain parts of Australia. But...
Yeah, probably just barefoot and underpants, really. It was pretty free environment. I remember it being pretty fun and carefree. Yeah, it got a little dangerous later on, so I don't think it's like that there anymore.
So was the fun then, was that just making your own fun as kids used to do, outdoors for the most part, or was there interest that you started to have as a child in sports or arts or crafts or anything?
Nope, I was never sporty.
You mean you're Australian and you're not sporty? I'm amazed.
I know,
Natasha.
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
It is.
And it's not that I don't appreciate sport. I was just never very good at it. I'm a tall girl, so I'm 6'1" now, and I think growing up, I never really knew how to operate all those arms and legs, and I was just never very coordinated, and I think I was probably more mentally hyperactive than I was physically. I was very creative from a young age. I probably didn't spend hours and hours drawing like your stereotypical, artist who says, "Oh, I had a pencil in my hand my whole life." I think I was always very creative and just dreaming up creative ways to play. I have a best friend, Prue, who we've been friends since we met when we were 6. And I remember a lot of my childhood just her and I dreaming up the most, the funny and ridiculous, games and scenarios that would usually involve hours and hours of preparation and creative, engineering, only to when we start the game, it all be left behind.
Where's Prue now?
We're still friends. She's in Brisbane, which is sad. We try to see each other as much as we can, even though I've moved away. But she, more recently, when I've moved, said, "Natasha, I'm just used to you moving around. I don't think you're ever supposed to sit still in this life." So I think, we've managed to bridge the gap each time I've had to move.
Oh, that's lovely. It's so nice to have those long-term friendships, isn't it? What's Prue's last name so we can give her a proper shout-out?
Oh, Prue Cooper White. Yeah, and she's a great artist herself too, but she's her passion is drama and teaching kids drama and finding their voice and their confidence, which is a really beautiful thing.
Now, were you into music and drama at school?
I wasn't into drama. I think I was a little bit too shy. Although Prue did manage to drag me out on stage a lot. We created a band called the Animal Lovers, and we wrote an entire album of songs in my bathroom where the echo was really great, so we could get good sound for the tape recorders. And then we performed it to everybody in our street. So I think I was just dragged along.
That's wonderful. What were you recording onto?
Oh, the old tape recorders where you hit the play and the red button at the same time on the tape. And I think I might even have one of those tapes somewhere. I don't know. I could probably get a company to make it play for me if I dared to listen.
Yeah, digitize it for you. Could release an album all this time later.
It's probably not going to sound good. We used to do a lot of creative things. I remember going to her house one Saturday morning and we were going to, I think we were getting into some kind of character and we needed to have cigarettes, which I know was very naughty back then. And so we were sitting there colouring in the paper and using tape to roll them around and then making little cardboard boxes to put it in so that we could walk around pretending to have a cigarette, which, I'm sure we made sure our parents couldn't see us do.
So you said you were shy, Natasha, as a child, but were you always also, given the chance, sort of a bit mischievous, a bit, underestimated?
I don't know if I was ever mischievous. I never really, I didn't like getting in trouble, and I was, probably always careful to just make sure I didn't do the wrong thing, although if I got in trouble, it was just usually because I was daydreaming and not doing what I was supposed to be doing, or completely forgot where I was supposed to be, or something else like that. So I think I just was in my head a lot, daydreaming. That's what I used to get in trouble for.
Well, you're being creative in your own mind. There you go.
Yeah.
It started early. Well, let's talk about your mum, Linda, because she is an artist, I understand, and she must have been very special and inspirational to you. Talk a little bit about your relationship with your mum and how you regarded her art then and now as an adult.
Mum's had a beautiful artistic career as well. I think it came to her through all the travel. It was one thing she could do if she was posted into remote countries. and while still, looking after us kids. And I never really identified myself as an artist initially. I always looked at it as being her thing, and I always admired her for what she was able to do. And it was always wonderful to see what she created, and I used to get very excited by that. Probably the peak of her career was when our family was posted to Port Moresby, so Papua New Guinea again. By this stage, I was a teenager, and I went to boarding school with one of my other sisters because it just probably wasn't really the environment to have teenage girls going to high school at. It was a little bit more dangerous in the environment there. And I could get a better education back on the mainland in Australia, although I didn't really didn't do much to get that good education at school. And so I think that sort of freed Mum up for a bit of more time to be creative, and she really blossomed, and she really took on a lot of the work, a lot of inspiration from her environment, the tribes, the headdress, the beautiful scenery. And she had a show, a really successful show. I think she was doing watercolors back then. And then she was dabbling a little bit more into oils, and she did a commission. She was commissioned by the High Commission of Australia, and she did a really big piece for a statement piece for the entry there, which was a coming together of the two cultures of Australia and Papua New Guinea. So, she had some really high moments in her career, which was really exciting to see. Because I would come home from boarding school and only be there on the holidays, I shared, my bedroom was also her studio. So as a teenager, I would be asleep till midday, as you do. But I could sort of just hear in the background the tinkling of brushes into the terps. I could wake up smelling the terps in the room. She had the windows open, of course. But so, yeah, those are sort of my childhood memories of her painting. And then as I got older and she was older with her kids left, she started to paint a lot more, probably on and off. She had moments where she stopped painting for different reasons and then picked it up again, but it was sort of always a bit of a constant in her life and what she wanted to be and do, and always finding time to painting. I never really understood then, but now I do now.
What type of paintings did she do for the most part?
It's a bit like me. She was just inspired by whatever was around her. So when she was in Papua New Guinea, it was very much painting the villages, like scenes of the national sort of in their native tribal dress, or just scenes of like the marketplace. Not necessarily typical landscapes, probably more sort of scenes of what was happening and things. A day in the life type stuff. And she was always doing portraits. She did a portrait of me and my sisters and different people at different times. She continued to do sort of portraits here and there. No, she never really sort of did them constantly, but sort of, I guess, when a moment called for it, she might decide to do a portrait. And then later on, she got a little bit more expressive and tried out some different abstract type pieces. I think they still had a little influence from the PNG days and sort of the colour and the shapes from then. And then she dabbled in sort of still life towards, back in Australia, and more recently, I think Margaret Olley's probably an inspiration to her. Most still life artists in Australia love Margaret Olley's work. So, yeah, she did lots of still life and was entering shows, and she won a prize probably about 10 years ago at our local show for just 3 geese that she painted from our property. We were on an acreage property with lots of farm animals then, and she painted these 3 geese, and it was a really loose painting, and it was almost just like a drawing. It wasn't terribly detailed, but a lovely composition, and she got first prize in the show for that. and it was called Charles, Di and Camilla because that were the name of my geese. There was these 3 geese looking in all different directions, and that was a real hit. It's probably one of my favourite pieces of hers.
Did she go under the name of Linda Phillips or her maiden name?
She went back to her maiden name, Linda Bridges. So my dad and her split up when I was in my early 20s. So, they went their separate ways and went on to have different relationships themselves. I think the years of traveling and moving around can take its toll on a relationship. I certainly can see that just with our recent move, how tough it can be.
Where is she now?
She's still in Brisbane. I think that's probably been our home base for a long time. So she's there. She's got a lovely partner, and she's still painting, which is great.
And she's Aussie but British. So when did she emigrate to Australia?
Oh, well, that British is sort of our heritage.
Was she born in Australia?
She was born in Australia, yeah. She was actually adopted. So there's a interesting sort of story there. She traced back her family, later in life to find out who her parents were. But she was raised in mainly the east coast of Australia with her adopted parents, Cole and Elizabeth, and with her brother Lindsay as well. He was also adopted. And he travelled, Cole travelled around my grandfather because he was with the mines department. And so, she had a life of travelling back then too, moving around. Yeah. So I guess it's just sometimes that's what life's going to throw at you. But yeah, she did find out later who her adoptive mum was, her real mum, and she found that she had a half-sister, Anita, and that she connected with her, which was really great because I think that's always been very hard for mum to not know where she came from and the story there. But there's a lot of peace, I think, that comes with finding where you're from. And
yeah, great stories. Great, kitchen table stories, aren't they?
Yes, yeah.
So let's go back to your story because you went back to Papua New Guinea, you said it, but then high school, you were a teenager, so you were in high school in PNG then, were you?
No, I went to boarding school. So, so we were living in Papua New Guinea, and I was in high school at Southport at St Hilda's school, boarding school on the Gold Coast, which was a really great school. It was an interesting environment because right near Surfers Paradise and the glitz of the ocean and the surfy culture and stuff, and I was sort of locked up in this girls' school. So it was, I look back and I think, gosh, it was funny. But, my parents sent me to that school thinking it was going to be really a better environment for me. And at the time I thought, it's just going to be a slumber party every day, just hanging out with my friends. And, I was very excited to go initially. And I started there in grade 9. And by the time I got to grade 11, it was not really the place for me. I was really struggling to connect with people properly. I was a bit lost. I think I was really missing my family and the stability of my family. And this is back when there was no iPhones or anything. So you would get one phone call, maybe 2 phone calls in a 10-week term, probably a few more than that. You get a lot of letters. But to call home to Papua New Guinea was a lot of money. So, you would sit around on a Sunday morning as they would announce over the PA whose parents had rung, and you would go and run to one of the phones where they'd patched the call through, and you'd get a really rushed 5 or 10 minute phone call, sort of telling them everything that's happened, and then they go, okay, well, we've got to go. It's costing a lot. And I'm like, okay, I love you, bye. And then nothing for weeks, and
that's heartbreaking. It wouldn't happen today.
Yeah, and like there's no time to sort of sit there and really chew over what's happening, or tell them about the problems you're having with other girls that are huge in your life but probably really trivial to them, or talk about boys or any of that sort of stuff. So, the subsequent is you do have some long letters to each other, but by the time they get it, it's been a week or two since everything's happened. So, yeah, I think I suffered a little bit towards the end. I probably disconnected from that closeness of my family a bit, because it wasn't there, and I connected with my friends more closely. But teenage girls, that's a whole nother area with its own problems, and everyone else is navigating life not necessarily with a lot of wisdom. So you're making a lot of mistakes and learning from it, and not always realizing at the time that you're doing the best you can, and you don't really have a whole lot of guidance. Yeah, so that boarding school was tough. So I guess what I'm leading to is that I didn't end up graduating from high school there. About halfway through grade 12, I became very depressed. I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, I would say I was very depressed. I was very withdrawn. I withdrew from my friends. I actually spent a lot of time drawing and doodling in my notebooks. And I came home from school. By this stage that year, my parents had moved back to Canberra. And I think that was partly why I was so upset, was I knew my family was in the country and they were leading this normal life, but I was still locked up in boarding school, and I was really struggling. And at the time it felt like forever, even though I was going to graduate in 6 months. And halfway through the year, I ended up coming back home and finishing school in Canberra. And doing the last 6 months of grade 12 in Canberra. I think by that stage my parent realised I wasn't going to graduate with academic honours or anything like that. So, and school in Canberra was completely opposite to where I'd come from. It was what they call college, so it was free dress, no uniform. It was, you turn up to the classes that you have scheduled that day, and if you don't have any in the afternoon, you go home, or you just hang around and get up to mischief with your friends, which is what I did. So I just went from one extreme to the absolute other.
Yes, a complete contrast, isn't it?
A complete contrast, yeah. But subsequently, when I graduated, I remember my dad sitting me down and going, well, here's your marks. If you want to go to uni, you could do these 2 things. And I just said, well, that looks really boring. And so I said, no, I don't really want to study anything. I don't want to be at school. And they went, oh, well, okay, well, that saves us the college fees. And I think I just thought I was rolling into grade 13 or something. I just don't remember having any thoughts about what was happening in the future, which in some ways I look back and I think, oh, I was really present. I was very much living in that moment, just day to day, but I had no clue of what was happening around the corner. So I remember they went on a big holiday and they said, well, you've got to earn money, so we're going to enroll you into this course to work in a bar, and then at least you can go and get a job and earn some money and, look after yourself. So they went on a holiday and I did this 5-day course in the bar, and halfway through, the person in the who was running the course said, you look like the kind of person who would go well for this client that we recruit for sometimes, which happened to be the Hyatt Hotel in Canberra, the old historic hotel. And I think it was just that I was a mild-mannered girl, came from a private school background, so they thought maybe I wouldn't get up to mischief, and I presented nicely, so they sent me over for an interview. My parents were still on holiday. I had to ring them and say, I need some money to buy something to wear for an interview. and so I went and bought a suit and went and had an interview, and I got a job working at the Hyatt.
And how old would you have been?
I would have been 18. And it was, I don't know if you ever saw the Hyatt Hotel when you were here. It was a beautiful historic, still is gorgeous historic hotel set up in the 1920s theme. And we used to wear almost like a costume. So we'd had a pinstripe long skirts, black patent leather shoes, a white blouse with a vest and a chain, which would have been a fob wash in the old days, but it was the keys to all the rooms in this case. And and we used to walk around all day in costume, pretty much, serving people.
And how were you coping socially then with these really difficult formative years of being a teenager, given, you're going from boarding school to public college and then into the outside world making a living? How were you dealing with that socially and with friends that you might have had? And
I think that ended up being probably a very exciting few years for me after being sort of locked up in boarding school for years with the same people and not really having a chance to meet with lots of other new people. Getting out just sort of was this big explosion of new experiences and new friends and new environments, and it was very stimulating and very exciting. And the culture of the people working at the Hyatt was fun. That hospitality culture of you're serving drinks and working till 10 at night, and then you go out and let off steam at a bar somewhere else locally and, have fun with your friends until 2 a.m, go home and sleep most of the day and then wake up and do it all again. So that was actually a really great period of time, and that's where I ended up meeting my husband at the Hyatt as well.
Oh, you met Greg at the Hyatt? Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, because congratulations, you've just celebrated 25 years of marriage, I believe.
I know. It's exciting but scary as well. to think that all that time's passed.
Well, a lot has happened in that time, I'm sure. And I want to come to that because, meeting Greg there, at the Hyatt, does that mean you got married at the Hyatt? Is that an obvious place to get married? No?
We didn't get married until we'd been together for about 5 or 6 years. But so by that stage, we'd moved back to Brisbane. But and I left the Hyatt probably 6 months after I met Greg because I realized very quickly that I didn't want a job where I was on my feet walking around all day. And there was this one part of working at the Hyatt where you used to run all the receipts through the register and sit at the computer, and it was only for an hour, and I just loved that bit. So I went off and studied computers so that I could have a job where I sat down.
Okay, so what next?
I started working in offices, and then my family, by this stage, my mum and dad had moved away again to Fiji. And so I felt very isolated in Canberra, and I didn't have a lot of network, and that's where I ended up reconnecting with my best friend Prue in Brisbane. I said to Greg, there's not much for me in Canberra. I really want to go back to Brisbane. And he said, okay, and he came with me. And so we moved back to Brisbane. And I also had grandparents up there as well. So it just felt more like home to me. So we went back to Brisbane, and we were there for ever since until recently.
And now you're back in Canberra. So what brought you back?
My husband, he got a job down here, and it was, it seemed like a good move because our 3 children, 2 of them weren't living at home anymore, and we had a young son who is much younger in age, and so he's 11, and he pretty much went to being an only child overnight. And Greg's family are all here. He's got 5 brothers and sisters. 1 sister's in Brisbane. So from the siblings that he has here and all of the cousins, it was a really great environment for my son Zach to have more family around and and it meant that Greg could, spend more time with his family, his parents. His dad's had some ill health recently, and it was good for him to be able to come and spend some more time with his family because he's been away from them for so long. And it also was just a really great job opportunity. So it just sort of, it's one of those things where the universe is kind of telling you this seems like the thing to do.
Well, in the midst of all this back and forth within Australia, you also spent time in Colorado. So how did that come about? Tell us about that.
Once again, that was my husband's job. So when we were in Brisbane, my son was, I think, 18 months old, and I had two girls, like 11 and 13. And my husband had this opportunity to move over to Colorado with the company he was with. And we just said, look, if we don't do it now, I don't think the opportunity to live overseas with our kids would be smart later on if you've got kids in high school and that sort of stuff. So we said, yeah, let's do it. It was a bit of a risk. It came out of nowhere. But my husband has traveled a lot with his family. So he grew up in a family his dad was in foreign affairs. So he moved around a lot too. And so we both, I think, recognized the value of living in foreign countries when you're young and being able to really appreciate different culture and how it can open your eyes to, bigger things in life. So we took the opportunity to move over there and, it was a really big adventure for us at the time. We naively said to the company that we would accept cash instead of shipping all of our stuff over. And so we moved over with 10 suitcases.
Gosh.
But it was kind of fun because my girls really got into thrifting, which is apparently a thing. So spent the next 12 months hanging out at thrift stores. Oh, look at this cool pot. Look at this. So, that's a cool armchair. So, it was a complete change for us. The visa we got was really quick and dirty. So my husband just took this E3. It was like a visa that lasts 2 years, but it had no work rights for me or my kids. And so that meant that I went over and I didn't have a job. So prior to that, I'd been an executive assistant in pretty high pressure environments, running on adrenaline, long hours, with, a young family as well. And I think I thought, this just sounds like a dream. All I've got to do is just look after the kids and just keep the house running and Greg can, focus on work. So it sounded amazing. And then the first 6 months we were there and we got set up and that was all very exciting and getting to know the place. And then I just woke up one day and I was just so depressed. All the kids had gone into preschool, primary school and high school. So there was a lot going on with kids in 3 different schools. My husband was at work and I was sitting there and I didn't know who I was. I didn't have my friends, my property, my work. I didn't know who I was. It was like my whole identity had been stripped away. So it was quite profound in thinking that, all my dreams are coming true. I'm just going to have a simpler life and it's all going to be great. But I found myself realizing that there was nothing for me and I didn't know who I was if I didn't have those things.
And is this where the art came into play?
Yes, it is. I think art saved me. I resisted for a long time doing anything creative because I think I was so worried about failing, and I'd been in this high corporate environment where the expectation was on delivering and I was at the top of my game, and all of a sudden I had to do something where it was guaranteed it was going to come out pretty awful. And I just struggled with that for the longest time. But I sort of got it into my head that, I'm doing this to make friends. And I joined this beautiful little art community called the Park Hill Art Club. And that's a pretty humble name. It was really like an art school. It had some amazing teachers, and it was probably had about 300 students, but going to classes, 3 days a week there. And so I joined it just to make friends and to get out of the house a couple of days a week and do something. And I ended up absolutely falling in love with art, and I was trying to give back because I had all of these business skills. So I rebuilt their website for them. I moved all of their 300 students off an Excel database and into a software program so that they could, work more efficiently. I ended up becoming the vice president of the association and being their class coordinator and working with the artists who were teaching to put on different courses and workshops. And so once again, I found myself pretty busy.
But you found an identity that you didn't know was there then. This was latent in your life, and it just came at the right time, it seems, for you to really emerge. You were the butterfly waiting.
Yeah, it did. I think I had resisted art for a long time, mainly because I didn't think I wouldn't be good instantly. And I know looking back, that's a silly way to think, but I just didn't realize the concept of putting effort into something and watching it blossom over time. And I also think all of that drawing that I did in high school as therapy, I think revisiting something like that felt a little bit too like it was going to bring all those memories back and those feelings. Like drawing was something I did to cope, and I couldn't think of doing that for fun. And so I probably had to work through a little bit there. But interestingly, one of the ways I got back into art at that time was on Facebook. I saw that one of my friends back home in Australia had just purchased a beautiful big painting by an artist called Sarah Hickey. She's a lovely Australian artist, and she was painting these beautiful female archetypes. You should look into her. You would love it. And each painting almost had an essay that went with it. Like her writing was just beautiful. And I saw this painting and I thought, oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. It was really bright colors. It was like female goddesses. And I thought, I'm going to paint that. And it was collage as well. And so I set about to go and sort of recreate something similar. And I was cutting up paper, and I'd found a portrait of my grandmother, and none of it worked for me. I couldn't handle touching little pieces of paper. Having a portrait of somebody looking back at me was really freaking me out. There was nothing about it that worked, but I realized I was just loving the process of creating again, like when I was 6 with my friend Prue, cutting up paper to try and make a fake cigarette. So I think I got in touch with that playful side of myself again. And I reached out to her and I said, I just want you to know I love your art. And you've inspired me to tap into something that's been lost for a long time. And she wrote back to me, and just with the most beautiful message that was basically just telling me to be kind to myself and enjoy the process, and that, art isn't just art. It can be deep, and it can really touch layers of us and the onion as it falls away. And it was just the most beautiful message, giving me permission to fail, I guess. And that stayed with me for a long time. And now I've recently been in a show in Canberra where she's been hanging her work, and mine is in the same gallery as well. So that's actually a really lovely
Yes. Did you get to meet?
We did. So when I came back to Australia, my goal was to hold a show in Wild Canary, which is a local sort of gallery / bistro that we had. It's a place that, it was my happy place. I used to love going there. It's sort of a garden and nursery attached to a gorgeous place where they hold weddings. And I thought, that's my goal. I want to have a show there. And within 18 months, I had a show there, which was really exciting. And Sarah bought one of my first pieces, which absolutely blew me away. It was just such an amazing thing. And then I think 6 months later, I went to one of her shows, and I finally was able to buy one of her pieces too. And we met there and we cried and had a big hug.
Oh, that's a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderfully inspirational. And the fact that, you circle back to the same gallery and showing your work side by side. But I'm wondering at what point you were actually, becoming commercial and was selling your work. Was that while you were still in the States?
I sold a few things in the States. I think I was very immersed in the learning process there, and I was experimenting and trying a lot of different things. So I didn't really have a style, although a lot of my work was strong fairly early on, because I think, not because of talent or anything, I don't believe in that, but I think as a child, having a mother as an artist, I grew up critiquing artwork. So, Mum would regularly bring a painting and go, "What do you think of this?" And so we had to sort of go, "Oh, I like this and I like that, but maybe that's a bit funny." So I think I had that eye, and that helped push me along a little bit more. But I probably was selling a couple of pieces here and there, but not really professional yet. And then when I moved back to Australia, I think there was the talk with my husband and I of, well, should I go back to work? And, money was getting tight, or can I make a go of it with art? So there was this real push to, if I wanted to keep creating and have that practice as a big part of my life, I needed to really bring some money in with it. So coming back to Australia is probably where I really pushed to be professional.
What year were you back in Australia then?
That would have been 2019. So we were supposed to go to London, and we, at the last minute, my husband got an offer to come back to Australia, and we thought it just made sense to do that instead with where the kids were at. And thank goodness we did, because we came back in August 2019 and COVID hit the following March.
So you decided then when you came back, that's it, you really would apply yourself fully to being an artist. Did you have a studio? Did you have to make a studio or make space when you moved back?
No, I had to make space. I did commandeer a bedroom in the house. And if I had something really big to paint, I would just push furniture aside in the living room. My family have just been so accommodating with me taking over different areas of the house at different times. So, yeah, I just made it work. I haven't ever had a dedicated studio. It's the dream, of course, but yeah, and at that stage too, I was still really heavily involved with the kids. Like my middle daughter, Vienne, she is an athlete, so she takes after my husband. She doesn't have any of my coordination, and she was really heavily into volleyball. So she's over in the US at college now playing volleyball, and so that was her big dream. But back when we moved home to Australia, I was driving her around, I think 5 afternoons a week to different clubs and teams that she was on at that time. So art, it sort of helped that I could make money through art and be really flexible at the same time, because my husband was still traveling and doing things for work.
And you have another daughter, Nadia, who's the eldest.
Nadia, yes.
And she wants to be an author, but do any of them have your art interest at all? Do they? And Zach, of course, who's much younger, he's 11, I believe, now. Yes.
So they're all very creative in their own ways. In fact, I think my husband has a creative streak in him as well, but, he hasn't had the time to slow down and look into it yet. But my oldest daughter, she was always a big artistically inspired. She would draw a lot. And in fact, when she was 14, she said she wanted to go to art school. And then she discovered books and her love of reading and writing. And when she was 16, she wrote a 80,000 word book over the summer. So she I'm going to be an author. And she did it. So, her and I, we're in fact, everyone in our family is pretty determined when we put our mind to it. Yeah. So she just fell in love with writing, and I think since then that's been her creative outlet. And she's just finished university. She did a double degree in arts, creative writing, and also communications and digital media. So she's sort of got a practical side that she can get a career with, but then also there's that creative outlet as well. My second daughter, Vienne, is very busy being an athlete at the moment, but her creativity comes out in curation and design. She's very good at spotting, nice things and curating things together. She's got a fantastic eye. I can show her one of my paintings and she can straight away tell me what could improve it. So I think she will be good at art if she gets into it at some point in her life. My son, who's 11, is a fantastic drawer. I think he actually probably takes after me. I see a lot of myself in him. He's actually colorblind, though, which was a little bit of a interesting thing to discover, and I think I struggled with that a lot when I found out. But it does explain why he focuses more on drawing and not painting, because he just doesn't see color the same way.
So now that you're, immersed in as being an artist, how much of this is commercial? How much is commissions, and how much is just you wanting to paint and that being an important outlet for you?
It has been very commercial, probably for the last 3 or 4 years since I came back to Australia. I did manage very quickly to establish sales through some galleries and competitions and avenues like that. My art is continuing to sort of evolve as I go through that. So bridging the painting as a practice and the discovery and the evolution of my art with the commercial side of it, I think is and will always be the challenge for me. So I've had a lot of success selling still life, which was something that was accessible to me while I had a very busy life with the kids, painting setups inside. But since my time's been freed up a lot more, I'm enjoying getting out into the landscape and doing a lot more of that. I think I'm still discovering my voice when it comes to my landscape painting. And so commercially, I think that's not as strong for me as the still life and the other stuff. But I've also done a lot of teaching, which I think bridges the gap commercially, which is the same for a lot of artists I see.
Yes, I was going to come to that because you do online. Do you do in-person classes as well?
I did for a long time. I did for 3 years in Brisbane because I had a local venue, which was really, really good for that. I haven't since I've moved to Canberra. I think I wanted a break from teaching, just to give myself more time to dedicate to my art. I absolutely love teaching. I think my entry into art and the things I struggled with from a personal perspective in terms of accepting and failing and all those sorts of things have helped me to be a better teacher to people starting their creative journey and helping them to see it's okay to fail and help to manage that anxiety that people have, which is it's such a shame how much that prevents them from doing something creative because they're so worried that they're going to fail or it's not going to be good enough, or what they produce is all that matters from the experience. So I absolutely love that, but I did burn out a little bit, and I think my own practice suffered. So I've enjoyed a little break from that, but I'm looking to get back into that a bit more.
Well, art for you clearly has been really important. It's served as therapy. It's really reinvented you in many ways. I'm wondering how you perceive it now, what's the meaning of art to you, and how has it changed you as a person? Has it in fact found a new identity in you in some way?
Yes, it's definitely changed me a lot. I think it was always there, but I hadn't discovered it. I think when I was younger, I was not very grounded, and I look back and I just think of so many situations where I was just sort of floating and directionless. And art has given me something to really chew on, something to hold on to, and something to really pursue that is my own. And it's not just something I do, it's who I am. I'm realizing more and more that you don't do art, you are a creator. And it's just a matter of understanding what kind and what part of that is important to you to pursue. So it's hugely important to me. And I think it's what I'm seeing is that everybody has some creativity in them, and I think we've just all become a little bit lost. And the people who come to my classes are generally trying to get back in touch with that part of them. And it's lovely to be able to help them do that, and without the fear and the judgment and worrying about whether you get it wrong, but just to be able to play. So I'm trying to do that even today still, try to get better at letting go and discovering my voice and letting it come out without that pressure of worrying about what's going to be on the other end of the paintbrush at the end of,
How much painting are you doing? Are you painting every day?
Yes, I paint constantly. Any moment I can. If I'm not painting, I'm thinking about painting. I spend a lot of time in my living room. I have a lot of art books, and rather than scroll art on Instagram, which I find is too fast and fills your head and with a lot of ideas and can be very busy, I rather to just look through books and slowly absorb things, different artists, different ways of painting, different styles, and just look at them slowly and absorb it. So quite often I will be spending time just sitting in my living room. I might do a thumbnail sketch of a composition of a piece of work I've seen another artist in a book do, and just sort of work out, deconstruct how they've done it. So I guess it's sort of exploring different creative ideas, even if I'm not at the easel with a paintbrush. But I'm generally working towards something at any point in time. I've just spent a week in Western Australia at a plein air event, Plein Air Down Under, which is a fantastic. It's probably our only, significant plein air event in Australia currently. So, and that's a real test of, it's like I said, that rock star painting, being out there in the elements and seeing what you can do and create under pressure.
Well, what is the most important part or the most satisfying part of painting to you? Is it the process? Is it when you first finish it, or is it when other people first see it and, if you like, bring some validation to your effort?
I think at the beginning, it starts out very addictive when you get validation for something that you've achieved, that you labor over, and then someone turns and sees something that they like in it, and it can be very validating. But and that can be very addictive as well. But I think what I'm really excited by is the promise at the beginning, the idea of there's this blank canvas and the excitement of all the different things that you could possibly do and put on that canvas. So it's that start, which is where I circle back to Carol Maureen and that daily painting movement, where every day, it doesn't matter what you did yesterday, you can wake up the next day and there's an exciting new opportunity to start fresh, and who knows where it will lead. So I'm very excited by that. I'm not the kind of person who can spend a week on one painting. I think I lose interest very quickly, and so I think the process for me is that opportunity to try and create something new.
I'm wondering what the atmosphere is like for you, what it has to be to transition from daily chores, family life, to getting in front of the easel. And is it music? Is it a podcast? Is it silence? What is it that helps you transition? Because I know you said to me when I asked you for your playlist that your Spotify list is a mess. So I'm wondering if you call on Spotify to help you get in the groove.
Oh, I've got playlists from a few years ago which were, they're just titled year, 2022, 2023. And if I heard a song, I would add it to the playlist, and that's what I would listen to for that year. And that way I could always sort of circle back to a year and go, oh, that was a really fun year. Let's listen to that. But do you know, I haven't done one for the last 2 years because I think I don't want to be thinking too much about the music. I quite often will pick a random soundtrack or a random playlist and just put it on because I guess it's almost like background noise, or I don't want to know what's coming music-wise. I just want to be surprised. And so sometimes I will paint in silence. It will depend on what I'm doing, but I think also too, painting outdoors, quite often you don't have music or a soundtrack. You're just very present and listening to the sounds in nature. And I think lately I've probably been leaning towards less distractions and less music and podcasts and just sitting with the window open and just the ambient sounds of the environment. Is that a bit weird?
No, it isn't. I personally can identify with that. That's exactly where I've been going recently with my art, is not having anything, just complete silence. And it's a different environment, and I'm loving that too. So I totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Tell us where we can find your work. I know online on your website, of course, but do you have any studios, galleries, shows coming up at all, Natasha?
Yes. So I'm currently, I have work in a show called Primavera, which is with Granger Gallery. It's just started a week ago, and it's part of the Floriade Festival. So did you ever go to a Floriade Festival in Canberra?
I did not. No, what did I miss?
So it's the spring festival, a flower festival, but they pretty much plant millions of bulbs all through Commonwealth Park, around the lake. People travel from all over Australia to come and visit, and it's just a huge festival of flowers, like tulips, poppies, all of the spring bulb sort of flowering stuff. And it's really exciting. And this year the theme is Art in Bloom, which is a great opportunity. So Granger have set up a huge marquee in the festival grounds, and they've got a lot of different artists showing work there, all floral themed. It's really fantastic. So I've got some work there, and I'm actually teaching a workshop there in a couple of weeks, which is all, loose and colourful flowers with the theme. So it's going to be really exciting to be painting amongst all of these garden beds of flowers. And so I've got some work in Granger Gallery as well, in their normal gallery out at Fyshwick. And I also have some work that goes into Art Nouveau up north in Queensland, but I obviously haven't sent so much up there more recently since I've been down here, but they still have pieces of mine. And I do go into sort of other shows here and there. But those are my two main galleries. And then a lot of my small stuff, which comes out of my daily practice, is more direct on my website when I sort of intermittently load it up. After a period of painting for a couple of weeks, I'll just throw them all up.
Thank you for being the first Australian artist on the podcast. And for joining me this week. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Natasha.
Oh, thank you, Chris. It is an honour, and I didn't realise I was the first Australian, so thank you very much for that privilege, and thank you for having me and for all the work that you do to celebrate female creatives. It's wonderful to see. I've really enjoyed talking with you today.
If you scroll down the show notes with this episode, you will, of course, find all the links, including our link to Natasha's website and to her social media, as well as our Instagram and also our email address. You can drop us a line via email if you prefer, or you can reach us on Instagram. Just drop a comment or a PM there. We always love to hear from you. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, do drop us a review and a 5-star rating, because that increases our visibility and therefore helps others find the show among hundreds and hundreds of podcasts. My thanks again to my guest this week, Natasha Ruschka, and to you for listening. I'll be back next week when my guest will be the Canadian artist Christine Code. So I do hope you'll join me then.